Let's use the free version of Elementor and the Elementor header and footer builder to build a responsive header and learn how to edit it on a WordPress website. If you're a beginner or intermediate web developer who's looking to learn more about using Elementor to build better WordPress websites without dealing with all of those pesky issues that seem to plague Elementor developers, you're going to want to subscribe to my channel and follow along. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to use the free version of Elementor as well as the Elementor header and footer builder in order to build a responsive header on your WordPress website in the Elementor platform. Now, if you've watched some of my previous videos, you will know that I typically build in the Elementor Pro page builder, the paid version of Elementor, because the features are totally worth it. But if you're still using the free version, this tutorial is for you. And if you are not using the free version, please check out my video notes to learn more about how to use Elementor Pro's theme builder in order to create a header for your website. Now, let's talk a little bit about the header for the website. This is where your site logo is and your main navigation, and it's a really important part of your website. So in this video, we're building a simple header that has those very specific, important components that you need to have in the main navigation on your website. And we are going to do so in a way that is responsive across devices. And this is one of the first things that I build on any website that I am building with Elementor, because it helps me start to visualize how the website is going to come together on the page. So if you've watched other videos from me, you will know that I set up my global styles in a very particular way. And typically I'll set a simple header up even before I do those global styles. But on the website that we're working on today, I have already set up my global styles and I will be using them throughout this build. Let's get started. As I go through this build of a header on the free version of Elementor, you may notice that this website actually is set up on the pro version of Elementor. That said, I do not currently have a header set up, and the way that I'm going to set up the header would work whether or not I had the pro version installed. But if you followed some of my other videos, you know that I do typically build with Elementor Pro, and that is already installed and activated on this website. I will try to only use options that are available in the free version, but there is a small possibility that I will use something that is only available on the pro version. And if I do that, I apologize, but I'm pretty sure that what I'm doing here is simple enough that you'll be able to follow along step by step, whether you're using the pro or the free version of Elementor. And then to note on that, if you are using the pro version, you would not be using this additional plugin to build your header. So check out the video notes down below, or you can find a link to building a header with the Elementor Pro page builder instead of using the free version. So let's go ahead and get started. I have logged into the back end of my WordPress website. As I mentioned, Elementor is already installed. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to go to plugins and I want to add a new plugin. And I'm going to search for the Elementor header and footer builder. And this is what we are going to use to add the functionality that does not come with the free version of Elementor Pro. I'm going to click install now. And then I'm going to activate that plugin. Now that the plugin is activated, I want to go to appearance and choose Elementor header and footer builder. And I am going to add a new template. This template is going to have the name main header, and I want to choose my options for this header now. So it's asking me what type of template. I will choose the header option. And from here, I want to choose how this is going to be displayed or where this is going to be displayed, which I want this header to show on the entire website. I don't need to do anything with user roles, and I want to leave this box unchecked. This asks if you want to enable the layout for the Elementor canvas template. I do not. The canvas template is a blank template and I want it to remain that way. So I am going to make sure I leave this box unchecked. From here, I'm going to click publish. And then I want to edit that main header in Elementor. And if you've already watched the video on how to do this in the Pro version, building it here is exactly the same. I am going to go through the same exact process. The main thing that is different here is that you're doing it through this plugin and not through the Elementor Pro theme builder. With that being said, I'm going to start by adding a container in direction row. And I want to go ahead and address some of the settings on this container right away. So as we've talked about, I am building a simple responsive header. Simple is it's only going to have 2 items in it, 2 widgets in it. And the first widget is going to be the site logo, and the second one is going to be the WordPress menu. In choosing to build this with only 2 widgets, I can have one container set to direction row so that those elements will sit side by side of one another. And then in order to spread them out so that the logo is on the far left side and the WordPress menu is on the far right, I'm going to choose space between. And once I have the site logo and the menu in here, you're going to see how this plays out. So let's go ahead and add the first widget, which is going to be the site logo. Going to drag this in. And for this site logo, I want to set a custom width. So I'm going to go to advanced, choose the width as custom, set it to pixels. And I know I want this logo to be 220 pixels wide. I'm going to go back to the main widget area and type in the word menu now. And I want to choose WordPress menu. Now, as you can see, when I go to drop it in, it's actually dropping in on the far right side. And that is because I have set it to have space between these 2 elements. Now I want to take it back a step and go back to the container. There are 2 more things I want to do with this container before we move on. I want to align the items center. This is going to visually align the items to the center of the container. And you can see when I click it, it adds more spacing above the menu, centering that vertically in order that it is all lined up correctly. The other thing that I want to do is I want to go to the advanced tab and I want to remove all of the padding that is on this container. I don't love the standard padding that comes on any Elementor container. So I always get rid of it. And the easiest way to do that is to just unlink these values, which will set them all to 0. Then I know that I want to add 6 pixels of padding to the top and bottom and 12 pixels of padding to the left and right. That 12 pixels of padding on the left and right is a very standard setting for me if there is not already more padding than that within the section. From here, I can move on to styling the WordPress menu, but at this point, it's a good idea to go ahead and update, save those changes that you've already made. From here, I will click into edit the WordPress menu. The menu is already chosen, which is my main menu, so we are good to go there. I want the layout to remain horizontal, which is perfect, and I'm going to set the alignment to right. That's not actually going to change anything, but just in case, it's a good idea to make sure that it will actually align right. And then I'm going to remove the pointer because I hate the pointers. Maybe that's just personal preference, but I think that they are ugly and that they don't do anything that is visually appealing to an audience that I would be working with. Moving down this, I know I also want to set the mobile drop down to full width. This is going to allow the entire menu to show up on mobile, no matter sort of like the amount of spacing we are giving that menu. So that is always a good idea to do. And from here, I will click the update button. And one more thing I forgot to mention is I want to go ahead and align the toggle right. That's going to be the toggle that's on tablet and mobile, but we'll get to that in just a little while when we start talking about making this responsive. So now I want to choose my style settings for this widget. And the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to choose my global font for the header navigation. This is something that if you've watched my previous videos or any other videos I've put together, you'll know that I have a particular way that I set up my global styles, and setting up the text or the typography for the header navigation is one of them. Now I want to work on my colors for the header navigation. So the normal color I want to be the same color as my buttons on my website.
And the hover color I want to be the same as the button's hover color. The active color I don't want to have at all, so I'm just gonna make it the normal, like the standard color of the buttons. So if someone is on a particular page, they are not going to see a color change based on being there. I will go ahead and update once again, and then just hover over and take a look at how this is looking, and everything is looking good to me here. So the last thing I want to do before I start moving into the responsive settings is I don't love how this centered itself vertically. I think there's a little bit more space on the bottom than there is on the top. If I wanted to check that for sure, I could use this handy little tool up here, the page ruler, but I'm just going to work on this by eye, and I'm going to go to the advanced settings. I'm going to unlink the margin values, which by itself doesn't do anything. And then I want to remove just 4 pixels of padding from that WordPress menu. And I think that centers it much nicer. That is getting a little bit particular, but I really want this to look how I want it to look. And that is one setting that I definitely want to make sure it's really centered there. Now that this is looking good on the desktop breakpoint, we can go ahead and take a look at the responsive breakpoint. So we're going to click on responsive mode down here in the bottom left corner. And this is the desktop view, which you can see here. I have added the laptop view as a custom breakpoint or an additional breakpoint. This is something I do on almost every website I build because I found that if you need to add it later, it is a pain in the butt. But if you just go ahead and add it up front, it doesn't necessarily add more work to the build. So I always add that one in the beginning. And I will be perfectly honest and say I do not remember if you can add custom breakpoints in the free version of Elementor. So if you cannot, don't worry about that. But if you get the pro version, I highly recommend it. Everything is looking good here on the laptop breakpoint as well. So we're going to move down to the tablet breakpoint, which is where we start to see that toggle show up. Now, I want to work on styling the toggle, and I want to be clear up front that what you do on tablet will affect what you do on mobile. And if we do it right, we really shouldn't have to make any changes once we get down to the mobile view. The changes that you make on mobile do not affect the changes that you make on tablet. So it works down, but it does not affect moving back up through the scale. All right, so let's click into the WordPress menu and click on the style settings. And from here, I want to work on the toggle button. Much like I changed the font color in the navigation, I want to change the color of the toggle button itself. And I want that to be the button's color. And I want the background to be the same as the header itself. And then on hover, I want it to be the button's hover color and the background to be the same as the header itself. From here, I want to make it a little bit bigger because we don't actually have that outline. I think we need to up the size on this. And I think something like 32 pixels works really well. And I also want to note that our 220 pixels for the logo is working out great so far as we move down through the devices. So now that the toggle is set up, I want to work on the dropdown. And as you can see, we need to change the colors, but we also need to make sure that we add a little bit of distance here so that the menu is not overlapping the logo. So I'm going to go ahead and start there. And down here, the last setting under the dropdown, I'm going to add 24 pixels of distance so that this menu is no longer overlapping the logo. And I'll go ahead and click update. And then I want to work on the text colors just like I've done so far. So the text color should be blue, the background should be white, the hover color should be green, the background should be white, and the active color should be blue, the background color should be white. I'm not changing the typography or the border or the padding or anything else here. Of course, you can play with these settings. I just don't feel that I need to. And I'm going to go ahead and click update. Now that I have set all of the settings on the tablet mode, I'm going to click down to the mobile mode and see how I did. Again, reminding you that if we did it right on tablet, we really shouldn't have a lot of changes to make on mobile. And as you can see, this is working perfectly on mobile. No changes here that I would make. And so that means that this is now done. You have created a simple header if you have followed this tutorial step by step, and it is responsive across all of the devices that somebody might be viewing your header on. Now, the last thing that we need to talk about in regards to this header is how do we edit it once it is built? And yes, it is true that you could just navigate to it the same way we did to get started, which would be to go to Appearance and Header and Footer Builder, hover over it, click Open with Elementor, open it in a new tab if you want to, and you can now access that header just like we were previously building in it. But there is an easier way to access this header, and once you know it, you're probably only going to access your headers in this way. So I have drafted a home page. There is nothing on it. It is just, I have called it home, and it is a draft. And I'll just go ahead and preview that for you so you can see that the only thing that is currently showing is the header that we have built and the standard Astra footer. I will, of course, be replacing that footer, but that will be in a totally different video. So now that you've seen that the header is existing here on the page, I'm going to open this in a new tab, edit it with Elementor. And while there's nothing on the page here, you can see that the header is populating, and I can actually edit this element directly from the page that I'm on. So if I click into this, I have full editing capability of this container, of the widgets that I've put in here. I could add more containers, like if I wanted to put an announcement, for example, above this in a bold color, something more like this. I could have a 24 pixel tall announcement that goes at the top. Again, just showing you some of the options here. I have full availability to edit this from the page. I've deleted that now because I don't need it there, but I'm gonna update so that it saves this header. And now I'll show you that when you wanna go back to editing the page that you're editing, you just click on Edit Page and you are back to that page editor. You are no longer in the header, you are making changes to that specific page. So this makes it really easy when you are working on the website. If you start to build and you realize that your header really needs this or that or something else or a little bit more space or a different color, you can click right in and kind of play around in real time with what that looks like, as opposed to having to go change your header somewhere else and then come back and see what it looks like. You can do everything visually right here in the Elementor editor for any particular page. So this makes it extremely easy to make design changes on the fly as needed.
And that's everything you need to know about building a simple, responsive header using the free version of Elementor and the Elementor header and footer plugin. It's really no more difficult than doing it in the pro version. It's just a little bit more streamlined if you're using the theme builder instead of adding on extra plugins. And if you are interested in getting on the Elementor Pro train, you're ready to stop adding on these extra plugins, which can sometimes bloat your site, then you need to grab my affiliate link down below. I only ever talk about tools or promote tools that I use myself in my own business. I have built a six-figure business using Elementor Pro to build all of the websites that I am building and managing, and I do so efficiently and effectively without all of those pesky problems that plague so many Elementor users. So if you are ready to jump on the Pro train and learn how to build websites better with Elementor Pro and the WordPress platform, then you need to follow along, grab my affiliate link for Elementor, and keep rocking your website builds.